¿Qué pasa, campeones? And welcome to the Churros y Tácticas Podcast. For the second time this week, it is Tuesday, the 19th of July. And I say the second time because for our patrons, you have a special exclusive Churro broadcast. Head on over to patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas to check that one out. Yesterday, I put out a part one of today's show. Today will be part two. It's really a continuation, let's say, of the discussion that I started yesterday. I already mentioned that I wasn't sure if Kiyan and I were going to be able to record together today. So in anticipation of the juggling of schedules and time zones, and now Barca is playing over in the US, which means that my whole entire day is all mixed up. I was just telling Kiyan that today I'm working from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. I wanted to put something out there, and I did so, perhaps jumping the gun a little bit because I didn't speak to Kiyan about it. But he said, "Hey, why'd you press record without me, man? This is Churros y Tácticas, man. It's two of us." So I said, of course it is. So let's record today. So here we are. We're going to be the continuing discussion that I mentioned started yesterday. It's mainly about the Barca signings, really all that's happening in, in my world at least. There's a whole lot in Barca. Not too much happening over with Los Blancos. We'll see. The summer's still long, but if you're Ancelotti, then he's pretty happy with what he's got for the moment, and for good reason, of course, after winning the double and adding Tchouaméni and Rudiger to the mix. But having said all that, Kiyan, you're here as well. Of course, you want to weigh in. You're one of those Madridistas that are either in the furious or the scared camp. I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of it all because I know there's a lot of disgruntled Madridistas out there in the world, in the nation's capital of Spain, in Madrid, and over on Twitter as well, and social media. They're, like I said, disgruntled, fearsome, perplexed as to why we are able to manage these signing, let's just say world-renowned, some of the best football players in the world, the holder of the current best trophy, the best, Robert Lewandowski, the Polak, joining the first Polish player to ever join the Barca ranks. I'm very excited. I'm very excited for La Liga as well. You've got the two best strikers in the game going head-to-head. So it's good that Barca are back on the map as well, signing these big-name players. And I'm ready for the season to get started, man. And hey, in just a couple days' time, we're already going to be treated to a preview, a Clásico, over in American territory, which of course you're going to cover live in the flesh.
Well, it's funny. I'm in neither camp. I'm neither disgruntled nor scared. I'm just the whole situation is really interesting to me. It's cool to have a stronger rival. I think it pushes us. I think there should be, if there aren't, also a section of scared Barcelona fans for what's going to happen long term to the club if this doesn't work out. But in the meantime, in the short term, Lewandowski is an incredible striker. And I say short term, that's maybe a little bit a disservice because I think Lewandowski is going to age really well. He's going to be really, really good for, the term couple years gets thrown around, but I think it's going to be more than that. I think he's got enough left in the tank. And I mentioned this to you, and what's interesting is I think, you look at the fact that Benzema and Lewandowski are the exact same age. They'll probably both age well because they take care of themselves. Neither of them are slowing down. And we're going to have a situation where they both leave Real Madrid and Barcelona at the same time, and then we're fighting over Haaland in like 3 years. Who knows? And to see who's going to be the replacement, who's going to get the replacement for either of them, because they're going to be two tough players to replace. So, but yeah, I'm neither disgruntled nor scared. I am actually genuinely intrigued by the whole situation. And before the podcast started, I went through and read the entire thread that Swiss Ramble tweeted out yesterday to explain Barcelona's finances and how they're doing it. What are the long-term disadvantages? What are the risks, etc.? And I just found it very interesting and fascinating.
Enlighten me. You mentioned that we should be scared long-term. I imagine you're alluding to what maybe Swiss talked about in his tweets.
It's just a risk in the sense that, like, it's been well documented that Bartomeu ran the club into the ground to such an extent that it almost was like he was sent by either Florentino Perez or Satan and told, like, listen, you go in there and burn it down. Just burn it
Run that
down
shit
to the ground. I don't want to see any traces of its existence, any ashes. I want it buried in the earth. You go there and just take it down. And he did. He did it. But I think what Laporta is doing now to get understanding what he did to you guys, to the club. What Laporta is doing now is a risk in the sense that rather than erring on the side of pragmatism and trying to get out of it just by maybe promoting more players or relying on what you have now, because that's
austerity.
Let's be honest. Lewandowski is one of the greats of all time, and he's still, in a lot of ways, while he's a great player who makes your team better, in a lot of ways is a luxury signing because you have Aubameyang. And then you can kind of talk about Raphinha too. Raphinha, like, you got Dembele and Raphinha, something that you alluded to a couple of weeks ago. But were both necessary given the situation that you guys were in. Could you have maybe relied on Abde more? Could you have relied more on Ferran playing on the right more? And then you give Ansu to the left, and Aubameyang maybe gets to the left a little bit as well, and you kind of Memphis rotates in to just help. Was that a necessary signing? And so, like, you get into these discussions, and the argument is that, like, you know, in order to fund a lot of these things, what you've done is you've refinanced certain debts. And I don't really want to get into some of the details, for one, because I admit that my understanding of this side is not that great. Yeah. And I would rather people just go read that thread because it explains it better, and that's his bread and butter. It's the finances, and it's not mine. So I'm fully admitting of that, and that's why I don't really want to get into that. But from what I understood of it is that, you know, they've refinanced a lot of the debt. They are selling TV rights, and they might sell further TV rights, and, you know, selling other assets of the club. And all these have long-term consequences. They bring you money and cash up front to sign players now, but they will have long-term consequences and bring in less money in the future. Maybe Barca, by then, if you get to that stage and you're generating revenues again at the level you were before the pandemic, it might not matter so much, right? If for whatever reason, God forbid, and this can go, you can apply this argument to any signing anywhere. If God forbid something happens to Lewandowski's health, or Raphinha is not as good as you thought he was, and the club doesn't really improve, then that's also a risk. Because I think also part of the argument of signing players now is, like, you want to make sure you're top four, you want to make sure you make a deep run in the Champions League because you missed out a lot of money not getting out of the group stage last season. And also, I think that's a separate discussion. We should talk about Frenkie. Obviously, part of the reason that they were trying to offload him is because of his salary, not because of his ability and all that, right? Correct. So, and also because he brings in more value. So it's just very interesting to observe from an outsider. I'll just leave it there. I think I've talked enough. And whatever.
So last time you and I spoke, Raphinha became official. I believe last time you and I spoke was possibly just before the weekend. I'm losing. I don't know if it's the heat or the crazy hours I'm doing. I'm forgetting exactly where we left off the very last time that we spoke. However, the last time that we communicated with each other, I was surprised to get an audio message from you, which I don't often do, where you were quite, I don't know, the tone was jubilant, perhaps with a hint of irony or sarcasm, talking about Frenkie, banishing him, offloading him, doing him dirty.
Deal. So that was after Raphinha. Yeah.
Okay. Perhaps a little bit, to my surprise, seeing as that day, Laporta had just come out and openly said that we are not in a position where we have to offload Frenkie?
Because you can't do it. Because he's not leaving. It's
Okay.
PR.
Okay. Look, obviously, we know certain things happen on and off the pitch or on and off the camera, however you want to put it, right? In the front offices, the things that, or let's say there's certain things that happen behind closed doors and other things that happen behind open doors. Obviously, Barca are not going to parade Frenkie de Jong around and say, look, publicly, that is, we need to get rid of this guy. Any team interested? This guy's up for sale. He's up on the chopping board. Laporta has much more, business acumen and common sense to do something like that. Another thing, of course, is what the club would like to see happen. And I think it's important to note, because there's you specifically alluded to that we're doing Frenkie dirty, a player that made an effort to come to Football Club Barcelona, that didn't go to PSG when they were offering her more money, that it's always been a lifelong dream to play for the club. Which to my rebuttal to that is, okay, fine. It's clearly not what Frenkie wants. I think we can all safely assume, even though Frenkie hasn't come out publicly to state any of this, that Frenkie wants to stay at Barca, that he's more interested to stay in the city of Barcelona than he is to moving to Manchester, that he just purchased a house, or he's refurbishing the house, etc., etc. It's his lifelong dream. Unfortunately for Frenkie, another reality is the current situation of the club and the immense fuck up of a contract that he signed, that Bartomeu got him to sign. Fuck up for the institution, Barca, that is, because if you have to believe what is being reported, Barca will have to pay Frenkie up to 100 million over the next 4 years. So I can imagine a scenario where club and player come to an agreement where the lowering of the salary cap in general, of which Frenkie obviously now is at the top at, will continue, and Frenkie will accept a new contract. In that case, I think it would be a win-win. In that case, this whole talk of Bernardo Silva, etc., will of course fade away. However, if Frenkie, for whatever reason, says, no, I don't want that to happen, and I want to earn all my money and stay here, etc., then the situation could get ugly. And it's, of course, an undesired situation or scenario, I think, for both club and player, because that just creates tension. And it's not something you can fault or pinpoint to Laporta and fault Laporta for, because again, this is still a contract that is overspilling, let's say, from the previous board of administration and their very irresponsible behavior when it came to handing out these kinds of contracts, of which Frenkie is just one player, but there are more cases. So and I get it, of course, you being a Madridista, or all Madridistas or anti-culés, anti-Barca people have to
I'm never anti-culé, never
poke fun at this situation and mock Barca, which, it's all that is for free. You can do that on social media, and there's plenty of it these days. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that and this is me, Diego, the Barca fan, the culé of all my life talking. I'm never going to hold this against Laporta to look out in the best interest of the club over that of one player. And I think in that sense, we can have a general consensus amongst all fans to say the institution will always be bigger than any player, whether your name is Messi, whether your name is, Di Stefano, whether your name is Frenkie de Jong. Our interest, those of us that support a club, is the livelihood, the success of the sporting institution that we support over that of any individual player.
So from Frenkie's perspective, this is his perspective. or it should be his perspective. You want to put yourself in his shoes. Okay, he signed the contract. Whatever bad deal that Bartomeu made him sign, or for the club, the consequences of that, obviously not Laporta signing. Laporta's trying to clear the salary. It's not just about transfers in and out. It's the salary cap issue too, and Frenkie's salary is pretty high. He's being asked to reduce his salary, sign a new contract, and meanwhile, they want to use that money to sign other players, and they want, instead of so they're basically, Barcelona are asking him to take less money, and in the meantime they're giving these salaries to other players like Lewandowski.
No.
Yeah, of course.
No, Kiyan, say it right. We are signing players because we need to strengthen and reinforce our squad, but the salaries that are handed out are nothing like the salaries that were handed out during the days of Bartomeu eras. The maximum, there's a clear sort of franjas, right? Clear categories, let's say, of what certain salaries can be according to your age, according to your experience. Whereas right now, and again, that's if you go to what is being reported, nothing is being made official by the club, but Lewandowski right now is the one that would have the highest salary, and that doesn't surpass the, I think, 10 or 11 million maximum cap that is currently in place.
So depending on which report you read, minimum Lewandowski is making 9 million, and some have reported 12 million per year. Dembele's new contract is short, but it's maybe not as much as he thought he would get. But Dembele is making a crazy amount of money too with his new contract, is he not?
It's as much as Ansu. He's reduced his salary 40% from 11 million to 6.
Okay, 6. I thought it was something like 9 for Dembele.
No, there was.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry,
journalist.
6. You're right. 6. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, look, I just think it's one of those things where Frenkie sees that the club is signing all these players and they're going to be signing more if they, let's see what happens with someone like Koundé. Laporta literally publicly said they're trying to try to sign him. And sure, Frenkie probably disrupts some of that wage structure, but
So again, if you're Frenkie, and to use your argument, you say that sorry, I'm doing this because I have the fan going. I don't want interruptions. If he's a man of the club, if he loves Barca so much, then surely what he wants is for Barca to remain competitive and to compete for all the titles that he since a kid had been dreaming of lifting, such as the Champions League and La Liga, right? And not out here for his personal interest.
Unfair to look at it that way. He signed a contract. That's what he's owed, and he has no guarantee the club will be loyal to him if he signs a new contract on a take less money. The club can still go behind his back and sell him the next day. He has no guarantee of
the club cannot sell him off without him accepting to be sold off. I mean, he's legally bound to a contract, so the guarantee is there on paper. That's what contracts are for.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Who knows how long he'll actually last at Barca? If it could be anything. If it's about matter of sporting project, if he's going to be, when it's time to renew the contracts of Gavi and Pedri and him, he has no guarantee that he'll be chosen there. So he could just basically sign a new contract, take a bunch of less money, and not be a part of the long-term project. He has no guarantee of that. We always expect the players to be so loyal to the club, but clubs are never loyal to the players, and so. It's unfair.
So.
It's unfair it's really unfair. You're speaking as a Kool-Aid, and Frenkie, I'm sure, is a Kool-Aid too, but it's really unreasonable to just ask players to take on these sacrifices when clubs are rarely loyal to the players.
I don't think so. I think that, again, I mean, it's no secret the financial turmoil that currently exists in Camp Barca, and we're to sell off very important assets for, as you said, a long-term risk.
Then why sign the new players if the financial turmoil exists, and ask him to be the one to sacrifice? Because
we want to remain competitive and secure certain objectives, such as finishing in top 4. And in Barca's case, like it or not, the club that has been in the top 3 biggest clubs and most successful clubs, and for decades now, we need to, of course, remain competitive and secure that we not just compete, but hopefully also win these kind of things, for which we need to have top players within the squad. And I think a lot of sacrifices are already being made, like the sell-off of these assets, like the team captains have also, they've taken pay cuts as well.
Not pay cuts, they've deferred payments.
I mean, meaning that they will get the same money over
a longer stretch of time. And I mean, that's basically what happened with Umtiti's contract, right? That's Umtiti signed a long-term deal, so you have to pay him for a longer time, but in smaller installments over time. So, like, again, I mean, all these strategies have long-term consequences to have, someone like Umtiti on the books a little bit longer, but you have to strengthen the team, and that's why I said it's interesting, because my question is, how much does signing Raphinha for 65 million actually move the needle for you guys?
55.
55? So how much does signing Raphinha for 55 million actually move the needle for you guys? Like, how much of that, like 55 million, is like, wow, this totally was justifiable. Like, this makes us so much better now.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's...
And Aubameyang was scoring a bunch of goals for you. And are we like... Look, I understand that you guys need to improve, but are we pretending like Barca didn't get better under Xavi? Like, you guys really think you wouldn't have been competitive if you didn't make these signings and you just leaned on pragmatism and just... Like, how much... I'm just asking questions, man. I'm not speaking definitively. That's not my goal here. I always just try to ask questions. But, like, you guys wouldn't have been competitive without these signings, you think? Especially after renewing Dembele and seeing what Aubameyang has done for you? You guys are bringing risky salaries on.
Well, I don't know if it's a risky salary. I think salary-wise, what we're doing right now is going back to some sort of normality. I think you talk about risky salaries, you have to rewind the tape back to Bartomeu days, where your Dembus and Coutinhos and Pjanic and Messis and Suarez's, or you can go on and on and on and on.
Raphinha was 65 million.
With add-ons, it's 55 plus variables.
Okay.
Which can get to the 65. But so I think in terms of salaries, we're trying to, bring that down. Let's not forget that Barca were the club that were handing out the biggest salaries. What's the Turkish one? I'm trying to think of the Athletic player. Turan. Another, you got a tremendous contract under Bartomeu and delivered absolutely nothing. It was un lastre para nosotros. It was a weight, a dead weight. We were handing out contracts left and right, Griezmann's, etc. Just massive contracts. That is being reduced. That is coming down to some sort of normality where you have these franjas, like I said, certain ranges where we now have the top of the range. And if you're a world-class player, you're earning X. Let's call it ballpark figure, maximum is 10. And if you're in the Ansu, meaning, lots of potential, a certain age, etc., you're earning 6. And if you're in Araujo, you're earning 4. And if you're just coming up from the B team to the first team, breaking through, you're earning 1 point something. That, for me, is normal. You're trying to bring back some normality, and you're, if anything, in a disadvantage to other clubs that are state-owned clubs, your cities, your Qatar Saint-Germain, your Chelsea's, your even probably Real Madrid, even though they have proven to be very kind of sane and sober when it comes to their contracts that they're I think the risk, if you want to talk about risk and point certain things out, is the selling off of assets and the long-term potential liability, the long-term consequences of that. I think that bringing in world-class players when you already have very good talent that has just been brought in over the winter transfer market is Yeah, you can talk about risk, but it also enhances, of course, competition. It enhances depth, squad depth. It's now up to Xavi and the technical staff in order to manage that. You're talking about a season that is, again, an atypical season where the World Cup will cut this season abruptly. We'll have a condensed schedule leading up to the World Cup, in particular in the Champions League group phase. Most of these, or a lot of the players that are on either the Barças or Madrid will also have to go away with their international sides to, compete in the World Cup. Whereas, for example, an Aubameyang won't, right? Here's a player that actually will not be competing in the World Cup. So you would imagine that he will be fresh. He will be in tip-top shape once the season, recommences, whatever. And kick into second gear in the second half of that season. If everything goes right, Barca will play roughly, 50, 60 games in a season. So having two players per position is nothing crazy. No son ninguna locura. It's not some madness here to go, oh my God, Barca have got two great players for each position. That's sort of any manager's ideal situation. Their dream scenario is to have healthy competition for each position. Now, do players still need to be offloaded? Your Braithwaites, your, potentially, I have to, of course, remember what day we are on, but we can all imagine the names that are potentially on the chopping block for Barca, where right now, the way things stand, there probably is an overbooking, yes. But I think if you compare these players that are in question to what has been brought in, you're talking about experience, you're talking about world-class players, you're talking about either proven talent or talent that is on the verge of peaking, breaking out. I haven't seen Raphinha. I know that there's a lot of Raphinha experts out there on social media that claim this, that, and the other, whether it's good or whether it's bad, whether he's better than Dembele or whether he's worse. I cannot say. I haven't seen Lee play. I would imagine that Xavi has. The fact that he was an expressed desire of Xavi would make me think that maybe Xavi knows a thing or two about this player and how he could fit his system. We all know that Xavi likes to have wingers that spread the field, that are, sort of stuck to their position out on the flank, that play wide, etc. In that case, and if I have to judge on highlights, I think that Raphinha probably fits the bill. Did he come overpriced? Yeah, I would have preferred to go on for 25 million had Leeds been relegated, but the market is what it is. The football market has always been a crazy place where but not only Barca have overplayed for clubs. Right now, we've brought in Christensen, Kessié for free. From what I've seen, in particular from Kessié, I'm very happy. Very, very happy. I think that he's going to do a lot of good for the Barca dressing room, not just on the field, but also off field. He's a player, despite that his demeanor is maybe that more of an introvert. He's very communicative and talkative with the players around him. You can see that on the practices. So then we have a Pablo Torre. Okay, many people seem to forget that Pablo Torre is the hottest prospect in Spanish football, was desperately wanted by Real Madrid as well, chose to come to Barca, has been officially presented as a Barca B signing. But from everything that we've heard Xavi say, we will definitely see him play a lot with the first team. In fact, the very first signs from what we have seen of him already, which has been 45 minutes against Roulotte last week, have been fucking brilliant, okay? Not here to blow smoke up anybody's ass, but just from my personal eye test, having seen this player play for the very first time, surrounded by players that he's never played with, this kid looks pretty good. This kid looks pretty damn good. So I'm very excited for him coming. And to call him an unproven prospect or unproven talent is ridiculous. Racing de Santander got promoted thanks to the talents of this guy. Okay, this was the heart and soul, literally, of the football team and the city as well. So we've signed Raphinha and Lewandowski for what, let's call a ballpark for 110 million. 110 million for the best and a very interesting talent, I don't think is anything crazy. I mean, how much was Tchouaméni? How much was Rüdiger? And I'm just calling Madrid signings here, but we can go, how much was Haaland? How much plus the signing bonuses, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So, I think this is in the grand scheme of it, pretty standard business within the football world nowadays.
Everything you said is 100% correct to me. I think it's correct in a vacuum. To simplify my point is that, yes, it's normal business in a normal business world, in a normal Barcelona year. But your debts were also at an astronomical level, and the net loss that you guys had, I think, was the greatest in football history. And you obviously don't have the injections of the state-owned clubs and all that stuff. And so I think erring on the side of frugality and pragmatism this summer would have made sense. And we're talking about like salaries and stuff brought in. Let's not forget, so because of necessity, you gave Gavi and Pedri a chance this past season. I don't know, 1 year, 2 year, whatever the timeline is. And you didn't sign anyone because you had to basically rely on what you had, and they were amazing. And the question is, I think many would argue, and again, I'm not saying who's right or wrong. This is just, again, it's risks. These risks that we're mentioning now are greater for you than it would be for any other club signing these players at these values, because they're not at greater risk long term. They're not sacrificing the assets. They're not refinancing deals. They're not going to be paying long term. They're not going to be making less money long term to do these. So the risks are greater for you guys. So the risks in a vacuum on these things you mentioned, talented players coming in who are going to help the team make them better, they wouldn't be risks for other clubs. There's no question that these two players make you better. There's no question that they upgrade your team, they give squad depth, etc. But again, the risk for you specifically is just greater for any other club doing these things, which means there's much more pressure for making sure you guys win with these players. And I don't know what win necessarily means, whether it's a trophy or it means getting to the semifinals of the Champions League or whatever. Me looking at this, I think winning La Liga is a realistic goal for you guys. I think you guys have the squad to do it. And in the Champions League, I don't really know how to measure it, to be honest. I think if you have a really good team, plus Lewandowski scoring goals, I think you can probably beat anyone. You can probably lose to anyone, beat anyone. That's the way that's my very early analysis. But again, it's just making sure that you guys do that, because if you don't, the risk is much greater for you guys. And when we're talking about salaries and Frenkie, well, Kessié is another great point that I somehow just keep forgetting about. I watched a lot of him at Milan. I think he's a good player, but I don't really see where he fits as a starter. If he's coming for free, that's great. He adds depth, but he also comes with, I believe, a 6 million salary. So you add the salary of him plus the salary of the other players you're signing. Could you have recouped Frenkie's salary there? And you haven't gotten rid of Frenkie yet. So would it have made sense to at least wait to see if you actually get rid of Frenkie first before you bring in Kessié? Now it's getting a little bit cluttered. It's depth, but it's cluttered. Yeah. And I wonder if Barcelona basically had just assumed they're going to get him off the books or figure out the contract situation with him. Yeah. And
so there's still a lot of work to be done, for sure. No, of course. And they're valid points. But it just seems like slamming all the work, the hard work that is being done is sort of the order of the day, and poking fun of these signings and situations is the hobby that when you log onto Twitter, that's just what the order of the day. It's just you just shit on Barca and make fun, and I feel it's being underrepresented or defended. So on this humble platform,
trust me, there are a bunch of Kool-Aids running around. You don't have to worry about that. The Kool-Aid arm, it's like 300. They're trying to fight off an army here. They're very active, so don't worry about that. You guys got people running around Twitter for you. But
okay, so I get that. Sorry, Kiyan.
No, just that, like you mentioned, slandering the hard work or whatever. I don't think anyone will question the hard work of Laporta, but they'll question the smart work. Is it? Are you going to look back on this 10 years from now and be like, man, I really wish Laporta didn't make those deals 10 years ago?
I'll tell you what. And it's a good question to ask, and I'm happy to answer it from my perspective. I think looking back 10 years, it was a lot more risky, and the damage that was done during the previous 10 years by the previous board was a lot more irresponsible and risky by buying your Dembeles and Coutinhos and Griezmanns for 100 plus million and giving them ridiculous salaries when there was literally no need for these players to come in and playing them out of position, calling them the next Iniesta, the next Neymar, and it was a shit show. Based on Laporta's track record, and I said that on the pod yesterday. For me, he's the best president in Barca's history, with all respects to Luis Núñez. In my lifetime, I should add, in my lifetime. I trust in his work. I trust in his judgment, not just his, but the people that he surrounds himself with. Because let's not forget, a great leader, right, surrounds himself with great people as well. In that sense, Mateo Alemany and the rest of the board of directors and the technical staff, now led by Xavi Hernandez, along with Jordi Cruyff as well. Yes, I would almost go so far to say blind trust that what they are doing is for, the greater good, meaning for Barca's sustainability, for Barca's health and sustained success, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And that's not something that we can say by certain other individuals that have led Barca in the past and that were the presidents of our club in the past, right? We've had absolute car wrecks of presidents. 3 that I can name off right now during my lifetime, but there have been more, and I think that, again, looking at what Joan Laporta has done in a very short period of time under very difficult circumstances, against all odds, he is actually keeping us afloat and doing, exceeding expectations by bringing in a Lewandowski, for example, and I'm enamored. I mean, I'm flattered. I'm flabbergasted, but also, just thrilled, man. I have to say, I'm despite knowing, or maybe not in depth knowing all the risks that we are maybe exposed to now in the long term, and maybe that will, come to light, and maybe the worst case scenario does play out, and in which case we will, 10 years down the line, talk about, Diego, do you remember when 10 years ago I talked about this? And I'll say, oh my gosh, yes, if only we could rewind the time. But that's neither here nor there. For the moment, right now, judging from what is taking place right now, the situation that Laporta had to take this team over, the financial levers, right, that he is activating at the right time as well. And I think the timing of this is ever so important as well. These financial levers or levers? I always feel I'm saying that wrong. Levers. Could have been activated sooner. But had they been activated sooner, would we be in a situation now where we sign a Lewandowski and Raphinha? Or would we be talking about paying Messi his money and Griezmann his money and Frenkie de Jong his money, and just continuing this misery, this train wreck, of a business deal that were all of these players on extremely high and irresponsible wages. So, there was a lot of work that Laporta had to do when he came in. I think he had to make very tough decisions. He did make those tough decisions, unpopular decisions as well. Mundo Deportivo is not shy of being an anti-Laportista and daily comes out with content that will, try to minimize, ridicule, or demonize Joan Laporta and his moves. But he continues to do, what he has been voted into, and that is to, in this case, sanitize, if you want to call it that, Football Club Barcelona, and make us competitive again and a world reference that we have been for decades. And I can only give it my green check mark for everything that he's done so far, because I find it very hard to criticize any of the moves that have been done right now. I can't imagine a scenario where anybody would have done it better.
Well, it's just the risk factor.
Yeah, which you have to do. I mean, it's a risky situation. High risk, high reward. So sometimes you got to play risky.
No, for sure. No. Again, it's not that you're necessarily wrong, but it's just that, again, the risk factor for you specifically was much higher than other clubs. Because let me ask you this. How good was this team if you had Aubameyang up front and Dembele on the right and Abde as Dembele's backup? If you just go into that next season, based on what you saw under Xavi this year, like, how good is that team?
I mean, with all respects to Abde, and
as
not having seen Raphinha with Dembele, with the injury-prone Dembele, are you kidding me, Kiyan? No, I want some more security than an Abde. With all respects to the still Barca B player.
That's fair, because like the Madridista perspective of this is,
of course.
No. Like, because the question of signing Raphinha for Real Madrid, for example, because
I mean, we beat you 4-0 with this team. Now with Leva, I get it. I get the Madridista perspective of this.
No. I'm talking about something completely different. I'm talking about for Real Madrid fans. A lot of them were asking whether we should sign Raphinha, and I wouldn't have splashed it on him because, and I guess the equivalent of our Abde is Sergio Arribas, who is lights out, an awesome footballer, a great winger. He can play in a couple different positions, can play false nine, can play in the middle, defends like maniac on the wings, but is also an incredible line breaker. And I would have rather just have promoted Arribas for free. And that's why I was curious to ask you, like, basically how you rate Abde in that scenario. Like, what happens if you just go into next season, Dembele and Abde on the wings, plus Ferran. You can put Ferran there too. It's not like, Ferran can also give you minutes on that side too. So I was just curious to know, like, where you stand on that.
It's interesting because obviously Madrid are in a completely different situations, but let's not sit here and act like everything is dandy and gravy over in the Madrid camp, because the flops are also being exposed left and right. You have Eden Hazard is probably the biggest and most recent example. Even though now the press is saying, yeah, this is going to be his breakout year. This is Eden's year. Great. Okay, cool.
He's back. He just showed up. Baby. He showed up in great shape.
Yeah, exactly. But that's 115 million or so, I believe it was, for a flop. Then you have another flop you just sold off in Jovic, which was, 60-something, 70-something million. Flops happen, right? I don't know if you want to put Gareth Bale in that list or yeah, obviously Bale is contributed to some epic trophies, or if you want to.
Bale's not a flop. Bale is a wild success. No.
Right. No, okay. No. Or Odegaard or Kubo now. I don't know, but it's flops happen. The risk behind a player succeeding or not is it's a fickle thing, I guess. It's Asensio. Just purely because he was so cheap, perhaps it was, the risk reward factor was far less. But players have not succeeded within Real Madrid, and yet it's carried on to be successful.
Well, so I think there's few different lines of conversation here. One is that, like, yeah, of course Hazard was a flop. I mean, some of those other names you mentioned, like Asensio, dirt cheap. Odegaard, was in the end, I think he's playing well for Arsenal, and we made money off him. Jovic was a disaster, obviously. And so, but I really like our team heading into next season. Like, ignoring everything else. That's why I kept reminding Madridistas, you have to, like, Barca are doing what they're doing because they're in a more desperate situation than we are. And just our squad is really good. The one that people are most worried about is what happens if Benzema gets injured, or the right wing situation. Which, like, if any top striker gets injured, it's going to be Benzema's going to win the Ballon d'Or. If a Ballon d'Or player gets injured for any team, it's a disaster. Like, you can't really replace him. We're going to basically play a false nine there in either Hazard, Rodrigo, maybe Asensio if he stays. And yeah, of course it's worrying if that happens. But our right wing situation, at the very least, our baseline, even if we don't sign anyone, is still a right wing that won us the Champions League. Fede Valverde starting on the right wing, Rodrigo coming off the bench. They did damage. It's still a pretty good team. It won the Champions League, it won the league, and we added 2 really good players. Rudiger came for free, plus whatever the fees, and Tchouaméni is freaking awesome. And so, like, I really like our team right now heading into next season. I'm not worried about that aspect. I think actually we'll have a better defensive structure because Rudiger is a supreme organizer. Both of these guys are character guys. We have no distractions. We have no drama. We have no polémicas. Eden Hazard is our biggest polemica, and he's a nice guy that everybody loves, and he's not complaining. So we're in a good situation for next year. What we, I think, have to be on our toes about, and I like this because everyone from Modric to Ancelotti has talked about this, is that, like, forget about last season. Forget we won the 14th, nothing. We're going for the 15th. We're going for all the titles we can. That's not in our mindset. We're coming back. And, like, to me, what we need to be most worried about, or at least more on our toes about, is that the opponents will probably be better. Barca are going to be better. Really hard to say with Atletico. You know, you kind of never know what we're going to get.
You think that Cristiano thing's going to happen?
No, they can't afford him. No chance. It's not going to happen.
I would love to see it.
For the league, it would be kind of cool. Lewandowski, Benzema, and Cristiano. I mean, gotta admit, for the league, it would be kind of cool, right? Ratings would be great. The ratings for Derby plus Clásico plus Atletico versus Barca are going to be... We're going to get some viewerships on that. But it's not going to happen. I don't know what happens to Cristiano, actually.
He's going to stay, isn't he? Ten Hag yesterday said something about a clause that they could activate where he could actually just end up staying.
Well, that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. There's no real other solution for him. Like nothing's going to change unless he just retires. But no, he's probably going to go back to Manchester United. Oh, there's a question, and then we really got to go. I feel like this podcast could go on for another 2 hours.
I know. It's one of those.
So you weren't here because you were away or you were working your crazy hours for Barca. One of the questions I answered was, who's deserving more of the Golden Boy Award, Gavi or Camavinga? So I answered it, and great timing, your camera just went black. So, do you want? I'll give you the. I don't know if you have a chance to listen to what I said. I'll give you the too long didn't listen. It was Gavi was more instrumental to Barca in the league. Played way more minutes than Camavinga overall, but Camavinga obviously was in limited minutes off the bench, incredibly important to Real Madrid's Champions League run. He has a bigger ceiling than Gavi. He's going to be a better player, bigger star.
What?
But Gavi, but Gavi had a better season in the league because he played more because he didn't have Modric and Kroos in front of him.
You just said that like in passing, like that's just a fact. Camavinga is going to be a way better player than Gavi.
Yeah, he's got all the tools.
The player that is already being like jubilantly received in all stadiums. And his name's being chanted out in stadiums across Spain. You're just going to pass on that and say, but Camavinga clearly is going to be the better player. Yeah. I disagree.
Of course you do. I knew you would, and I knew and I said exactly what you said. I said when we hear from Diego, that's exactly what I was going to say. You didn't disappoint. Camavinga is just throwing people around in the Champions League, having incredibly important impacts off the bench. Camavinga is going to be, it's just a different breed to me. He's going to be awesome. But let me read you the question from Hristo, because he's on your side. Don't worry.
Right.
Hristo says, if you were to give Golden Boy Award and there is a criteria, and there is, the number one would be consistency and high level of performance. Iceman got it wrong. I don't recall Golden Boy to have been awarded ever to a player for a demonstrative 365 minutes. The award isn't given based on a sample play. Gavi may have a lesser ceiling. However, he has demonstrated that his capacity to perform and grow on a consistent basis at a high level is ever present. On club level and national level, given my input, I would ask Iceman to reconsider his answer. I don't know where Iceman came from, by the way.
Risto is the whole Top Gun thing. I remember.
Oh, I haven't. I still
Iceman
haven't
and
seen
Goose.
Top Gun, not the original nor the new one, so I'm out of the loop on that inside joke. So yeah, that's it. I actually, and I told.
So you're not reconsidering. You're doubling down.
No, I said it in my answer. I said it. Gavi is probably deserving of it because he played way more minutes. But I think I even mentioned the word bias. I said, for me, Camavinga, because of what he did in the Champions League and because he's going to be the better player, I'll give it to him. But there's no. Now a lot of people will say, well, a lot of people played a lot of minutes in La Liga. Doesn't mean they're better than Camavinga. And the reality is the situation of this season was Camavinga just didn't get into the rotation because Modric and Kroos were starting every game, and Gavi was thrown into it the way Vinicius was thrown into it under Solari because there were no other real options. And so because of that, the timing really worked out. So I'm fine if you want to give it to Gavi. You got it.
I mean, Gavi is just an exceptional talent. I mean,
he's very good. You're
it's
talking
about
a
player.
He's very good.
You're talking about a player that whose progress. I mean, this is my third season now at Barca, and I remember covering Gavi when he was still playing for the under-19s team, even lower, I believe. And he's just been jumping categories, almost like, obviously not on a weekly basis, but he was used in Barça Athletic, the B team, in certain occasions. And then last season, of course, started to break into the first team when he was still not technically a part of the Barça first team. So everybody recognizes his talent. When Luis Enrique called him up for the Spanish national side, he was mocked, he was ridiculed. People were saying, how can this bias culé take these young Barça players and not take any Madridista and not any Madrid players? What is this, that, and the other? And now every stadium that Gavi plays in, you hear Gavi's being chanted all over the place. That's special. And that doesn't happen every single day. It doesn't happen every season. You're talking about a generational
what do
talent.
Chance have anything to do with this? You're just like bringing in all these
because he's people are in awe when they see this kid play. People are in awe.
He's a good player.
He's a fantastic player.
Yeah.
You're going to enjoy him more than what you think when you see him playing in a red shirt. All of a sudden, this whole like cloud of whiteness that blocks your vision will be cleared. It will be like a cloud of smoke. White smoke will go up in air.
I like him. I like him.
It often happens with Barca players when they wear a red shirt.
No, you know me, man. I'm not an anti-culé, and I don't really care about this stuff. I like Gavi. Gavi's a really good player, and something that I mentioned actually in my answer was, like a lot of people will, when you compare the two, Camavinga will be known as like the labels are there. They'll call Camavinga the more stronger physical player, and Gavi.
He's very strong. He's physically more imposing. But Gavi doesn't shy away.
But I just wanted to mention two things on that note. One, Camavinga is incredibly gifted technically, and two, Gavi is way stronger than he looks.
Yes.
Like, I've seen Gavi go into 50-50 challenges against players he has no business winning the ball from, and he wins it. And so I mentioned that. I was like, don't discount Gavi's physical ability nor Camavinga's technical ability. And so, yeah. Listen, isn't this nice that we're now set up for 5 to 10 years of who's better, Camavinga or Gavi? Who's better, Ansu or Vinicius? Who's better, Lewandowski or Benzema? Who's better? Who am I missing? Tchouaméni or
Pedri?
Pedri's different kind of players, but
no, I was just throwing Pedri.
Yeah.
It's great, man. It's great. It's wasn't very long ago when we were talking about short-term, long-term success and who will be better between the two, and it all looked so rosy this path for Madrid, but thanks to the hard work of our current president and his board, I have to say, we're in the mix, man, and we're putting pieces to this puzzle together under what I think is our ideal coach, still very young and experienced in the coaching department, but already proving, I think, to have a good idea of what he wants to put into play, and that allowed us to leapfrog from being in ninth when we were properly being ridiculed and the hazme reír, let's say, of the footballing world, to then being finishing the season in second place, and now having a fresh new start to the season with a preseason. I think we often talk about judging Xavi on this season now. I think we have to do similar with Laporta, where, this is really now his tenure, his reign truly commences now. And I'm feeling a lot more optimistic, man. I have to say, my Barca blues are slowly but surely fading away. The success of our biggest rivals, of course, still lingers in the back of my head, but as happened in the vice versa scenarios with you guys in the past, when Barca's success was painful and burning in the hearts of Madridistas, the signings of new players, or hopefully also the reappearance of injured ones that hopefully remain healthy. That's why I did like this when you mentioned Ansu's name. Same with Pedri. He finished off the season injured. They're looking fit, they're looking healthy, and I'm just excited for the season to start, for sure, man, for sure. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think you have to allow culés to be feeling optimistic ahead of this new season. It's going to be an exciting one.
Let me get your thoughts on one more thing before we go.
Okay.
2009. Is this the poor man's 2009? Barca win the treble. Real Madrid sign a bunch of players. Real Madrid win the double.
Cristiano, Benzema, Kaká,
Xabi Alonso.
Xabi Alonso, right.
This year, Real Madrid win the double. Barca sign a bunch of players.
Yeah.
The year after Barca won the treble and Real Madrid signed all those players, there was... I don't know if there was calm. I was too young then to know, but there seems to have been calm in Barca while everyone was going nuts about Real Madrid signings, and Barca were better the next year. What happens next year in 2020, this upcoming season?
23, 24? 22, 23.
Yeah.
I think we'll see a race for the title go down to the wire. There's no one club running away with it with an 18-point gap, 10-point gap. I think crucial will be this first part of the season before the World Cup break. I think that could really sort of set the tone for what the remainder of the season will be. I think that might be a little bit haphazardous, a little bit crazy, a little bit nutty, similar to what we saw when the COVID break ended, let's say, and the league recommenced there, where, Madrid, obviously just like a freight train took care of business. And I think the team that will be most successful will sort of dictate the pace of their league campaign run in this opening stretch of the league season. I think it will be, the team physios will have a lot of work to do. I'm hoping that injuries will play as little of a part as possible, and the team that will be the healthiest, the fittest will win. But I think it's going to go down to the wire.
Health is the biggest barrier for both teams, I think.
Yeah.
Probably particularly Barcelona because of Ansu's situation. But yeah, it'll be fascinating.
One more thing, I think, you mentioned this season, but I think also looking ahead, and again, something I picked up on social media is that a lot of these players that are being brought in, how they're quote unquote finished or veteran players. In the case of Lewandowski, you mentioned the 34 years old next month. But even the Kessies, the Christensens, and Raphinhas, they're in their mid-20s. Since when is a mid-20 player in their mid-20s only good for the short term?
No, you haven't signed any finished players. Whoever said that is out of their minds.
No, but it seems that there's this sort of narrative taking place now. Well, Barca is just focusing on the short term. I would disagree. I think that seeds are also implanted.
Not so much, I think, with the players you're signing. Although Lewandowski is probably like midterm, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah. Lewandowski is clearly the oldest.
3 years is a long time in football.
Mm-hmm.
You get 3 years out of him. Okay, let's go.
All right,
Thanks,
buddy.
Diego. Appreciate
Good
it.
talking to you.
I feel like I feel like it's not a satisfying ending for me. I feel like we didn't really finish the business, to be honest. But we'll be back. We'll be back. Patreon.com/.
As we always do.
Thanks,
We're always
guys.
back.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.